The Nevada sun beat down mercilessly on the shooting range as Staff Sergeant Mike Reynolds adjusted his stance for the third time. His fingers traced the familiar grooves of his M24 rifle, a weapon that had served him well through 3 tours. The target fluttered slightly in the desert wind, 1,000 yards out. Just another day of practice, or so he thought. The first sign that something was different came when his spotter, Private Jenny Martinez, let out a string of colorful expletives that would have made their drill instructor proud. Reynolds looked up from his scope, squinting against the harsh sunlight, and felt his jaw drop. Descending through the clear blue sky was something that definitely wasn't from Boeing or Lockheed Martin. The ship, because what else could you call a silvery disk the size of a football field, moved with an impossible grace, settling into a hover just 200 yards from the range's main building. Its surface rippled like liquid mercury, reflecting the desert landscape in distorted waves. "Sir," Martinez's voice cracked slightly. "Should we call this in?" Reynolds already had his phone out, but before he could dial, the base alarms started wailing. Within minutes, the range was swarming with personnel in various states of combat readiness. Some had full gear, others looked like they'd just rolled out of bed. All of them were staring at their new visitor. The ship's surface rippled again, and a section of it flowed downward, forming an elegant ramp. 3 figures emerged, each at least 7 feet tall, clad in what looked like living metal that shifted and moved with their bodies. The center figure, distinguished by elaborate patterns that danced across its armor, stepped forward. "I am High Marshal Zextal of the Varaxian Empire," the figure announced in perfect English, its voice resonating with an odd metallic undertone. "We have been observing your military exercises with great interest." The pause before the last word dripped with barely concealed amusement. Major Jessica Morgan, who had somehow materialized at the front of the human group, despite being off-duty just minutes ago, stepped forward. Her combat boots kicked up small clouds of dust as she approached the aliens with a relaxed stance that belied the tension in the air. "Welcome to Earth, High Marshal," she said, her voice carrying across the range. "I'm Major Jessica Morgan, United States Marine Corps. We weren't expecting visitors today." Zextal's head tilted in what might have been a gesture of amusement. "Clearly not, given the primitive nature of your training." He gestured toward the range where Reynolds and Martinez were still at their position. "Our scanners detected these projectile weapons of yours. I must admit, we found the results rather quaint." As if on cue, a gust of wind caught Reynolds' target, causing his next shot to miss by 2 inches. The sound of the report echoed across the range, and the Varaxians actually flinched. Not in fear, but in what appeared to be second-hand embarrassment. Even our youngest learners achieve better accuracy with basic energy projectors, one of Zextal's companions said, their armor rippling with what looked like suppressed laughter. Major Morgan's expression didn't change, but those who knew her well caught the slight tilt of her head. A tell she had when she saw an opportunity. "Perhaps," she said, her voice still casual, "you'd care to elaborate on these energy projectors of yours. We're always eager to learn from more advanced civilizations." The condescension in Zextal's response was almost palpable. "Our weapons use directed energy beams, guided by quantum computers. They never miss. They need no adjustment for wind or weather. They are, in every way, superior to your crude projectile systems." Morgan nodded thoughtfully, but those close enough noticed the dangerous glint in her eyes. The same look she got before destroying every record at the Advanced Marksmanship School. "That sounds impressive," she said. "Would you be interested in a small demonstration? A friendly competition, perhaps?" The words hung in the hot desert air like a challenge, and the High Marshal's armor rippled with what could only be described as delight. He had no way of knowing he'd just walked into a trap that had been centuries in the making. One built not of technology, but of human ingenuity and the understanding that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't the one that never misses, but the one that can hit targets you can't even see. The Pentagon's main conference room had never felt so small. Major Jessica Morgan sat at the massive oak table, surrounded by a collection of generals, admirals, and civilian officials who all wore expressions ranging from concern to outright fear. Above them, a holographic display, courtesy of their new Varaxian visitors, showed the terms of what High Marshal Zextel called a sporting proposition. "Let me get this straight," General Harrison said, his voice tight with controlled tension. "They want to turn Earth's independence into a prize in some sort of intergalactic shooting competition." "That's correct, sir," Morgan replied, her fingers drumming a quiet pattern on the table surface. "The Varaxians believe their energy weapons make them unbeatable. They see this as a merciful way to demonstrate their superiority." The room erupted in heated discussions until Admiral Chen slammed her hand down. "What exactly are the stakes, Major?" Morgan stood and walked to the holographic display. "If we win, Earth maintains its independence and gains recognition as a sovereign planet in the galactic community. If we lose," she paused, her expression hardening, "we become a protectorate of the Varaxian Empire, subject to their laws and technology restrictions." "And these are the competition parameters?" Secretary Thompson asked, gesturing to the rotating display of challenge scenarios. "Yes, sir. 5 rounds of increasing difficulty. Precision shooting, moving targets, environmental challenges, multiple target engagement, and what they call the impossible shot. A final challenge that will be revealed only during the competition." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's future would be decided not by diplomacy or full-scale war, but by a contest of martial skill. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. "Major Morgan," General Harrison leaned forward, "why did you accept this challenge without consulting higher command?" A slight smile crossed Morgan's face. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted." "Because they're arrogant, sir, and arrogance makes you blind." She stood and walked to the window, looking out over the Washington Monument in the distance. The Varaxians have achieved perfect accuracy with their energy weapons. Every shot goes exactly where they aim it, every time. But that's also their weakness. She turned back to face the room. They've forgotten how to think around corners. Their weapons are so advanced that they've lost the art of making the impossible possible. They don't understand that sometimes the path to a target isn't a straight line. Admiral Chen's eyes narrowed. "You have a plan." "I do, ma'am. But I'll need unconventional resources and complete operational freedom. What I'm proposing will look like madness to our alien friends, and that's exactly what we want." The senior officials exchanged glances. Finally, General Harrison nodded. "What do you need?" Morgan's response was immediate. "I need access to every pool shark, baseball pitcher, and demolitions expert we can find. I need meteorologists and physicists. And most importantly, I need the Varaxians to keep thinking we're desperately outmatched." "You want to sandbag the initial demonstrations," Secretary Thompson said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Exactly, sir. Let them think their victory is assured. While they're laughing at our primitive weapons, we'll be planning something they can't even imagine." The room was silent again. But this time the silence had a different quality. It was the silence of hope taking root. "Very well, Major," General Harrison said finally. "You have your authorization. But remember, the entire human race is counting on you." Morgan nodded, her expression serious, but her eyes bright with determination. "Yes, sir. And there's one more thing." She pulled up a new hologram, showing a complex series of trajectories and calculations. "I need access to the old underground testing facility in Nevada. What I have in mind is going to take some very special practice." As the officials studied the display, the Varaxian ambassador's ship hung in high orbit, its crew already celebrating what they saw as an inevitable victory. They had no way of knowing that their challenge had awakened something they'd never encountered before: human ingenuity under pressure, and the dangerous creativity that comes when everything is on the line. Deep below the Nevada desert, in a repurposed nuclear testing facility, Major Jessica Morgan watched as her unconventional team assembled. The massive underground chamber had been transformed into what the Varaxian observers above ground would consider a madhouse. Bank shot Billy Williams, 8-time world pool champion, was setting up an elaborate array of mirrors and steel plates at seemingly random angles. Beside him, Dr. Eleanor Wright, leading expert in fluid dynamics, adjusted complex holographic models of wind patterns and atmospheric pressure gradients. Major called out former MLB pitcher Carlos Rodriguez, "We've got the rotation calculations down to the microsecond." He stood next to a series of spinning targets that would make any traditional marksman dizzy just looking at them. But the real magic is happening over there. He pointed to where Dr. Sarah Thompson, quantum physicist, was working with a team of ballistics experts. Morgan walked over to their station, where complex equations covered multiple holographic displays. "Talk to me, Doc. What have you found?" Dr. Thompson's eyes sparkled with excitement. "The Varaxians made a critical mistake in their assumptions, Major. Their energy weapons are perfect, too perfect. They travel in absolute straight lines, unaffected by gravity or environmental factors. But that also makes them predictable." She pulled up a new display showing a complex series of trajectories. "We've been analyzing the physical properties of their shield technology. It's designed to stop direct force, but it has no concept of dealing with multiple simultaneous impact points or cascading force distribution. Like a pool break shot gone nuclear," Billy added with a grin, chalking his cue stick out of pure habit. Morgan nodded, walking through the hologram. "And our special ammunition." From the corner, Master Sergeant James "Boom Boom" Cooper spoke up, his demolitions expert badge gleaming under the lights. "Ready for testing, ma'am. Each round is a masterpiece of old-school engineering. No electronics for them to detect or counter. Just pure physics and some very special metallurgy." The Major watched as Cooper demonstrated, loading one of the custom rounds into a modified rifle. The bullet itself looked deceptively simple, but inside was a carefully crafted series of weight distributions and impact-triggered mechanical splits. "Show me," she ordered, and Cooper took aim at what appeared to be a simple target. The shot rang out, but instead of flying straight, the bullet hit a steel plate, split into 3 pieces, each fragment following a precise path through the course before reuniting at the target point. "Beautiful," Morgan breathed. "And the Varaxians." Dr. Wright pulled up the latest surveillance feed, still watching our decoy training site up top. "Their observers are getting quite a show of missed shots and frustrated Marines. Their latest report to their high command basically calls us aberrably primitive." Morgan allowed herself a small smile. "Perfect. Let's keep them thinking that. How long until the team is ready for full integration?" 3 days, Rodriguez said confidently. "We've got the basic physics down. Now it's just a matter of putting it all together." Billy's been teaching the Marines how to think like pool players, and I've been working on their understanding of spin and air resistance. "The real challenge," Dr. Thompson added, "will be maintaining the deception until the final round. These calculations are complex. Our shooters will need to deliberately miss in ways that look natural, while actually gathering data about the competition environment." Morgan walked to a weapon rack where a row of seemingly normal rifles waited. Each had been modified with such subtle precision that even a close inspection would reveal nothing unusual. She picked one up, feeling its perfect balance. "2 types of people underestimate a bullet," she said, her voice carrying through the chamber. "Those who've never been shot, and those who think they're too advanced to be shot. She turned to face her team. The Varaxians are both. They'd forgotten that the most dangerous weapon isn't the one that never misses. It's the one that can turn their own certainty against them. The team watched as she raised the rifle, and without seeming to aim, fired a single shot. The round bounced off 7 different surfaces, split and recombined, before striking a target that had been completely hidden from her position. "Now," she said, the echo of the shot still ringing through the chamber, "let's show them what human ingenuity really looks like." The massive space station gleamed like a jewel against Earth's backdrop, its crystal and metal construction drawing gasps from even the most seasoned space veterans among the human team. Major Morgan stood in the preparation chamber, running her hand along her rifle stock as she watched the Varaxian team through the transparent barrier. "Quite the show they're putting on," muttered Billy Williams, who had insisted on coming as part of the support team. His pool cue, converted into a cleaning rod for their special ammunition, tapped nervously against his leg. The Varaxian team was indeed putting on a show. Their energy weapons pulsed with beautiful, multicolored light as they hit target after target in their practice session. Each shot created a perfect line of light, like a laser show at a concert, but deadlier and more precise. "Remember," Morgan said to her team, "missing is part of the plan. But make it look good." She turned to face the 6 Marine sharpshooters she'd selected. Each had spent the last 3 days learning to fail in very specific ways. High Marshal Zextel's voice boomed through the station's communication system. "Welcome, distinguished guests from across the galaxy, to the first interspecies martial competition." The announcement came in multiple languages, though the human team noticed their language came last. The competition arena was a marvel of engineering. A massive spherical space nearly a mile in diameter, filled with obstacles, moving platforms, and targets at various ranges. The artificial gravity could be adjusted in different sectors, and atmospheric conditions could change at a moment's notice. "First round," announced the Varaxian judge, "basic accuracy assessment. Competitors will engage targets at increasing ranges under standard conditions." The Varaxian team went first. Their leader, Sub-Commander Vex, stepped up to the firing line. His weapon, a sleek device that seemed to flow like mercury in his hands, hummed to life. The first target appeared at 100 meters. Vex didn't so much aim as simply point, a brief flash of light, and the target's center disappeared in a perfect circle of destruction. The crowd of alien spectators chittered and clicked in appreciation. The display continued. 200 meters, 500 meters, 1,000 meters. Each shot was perfect, each impact identical. "Impressive," Dr. Thompson whispered to Morgan. "But notice, they're not actually calculating anything. The weapon's doing all the work." Morgan nodded slightly as the Varaxian team completed their demonstration with a perfect score. High Marshal Zextel's smug expression was visible even from across the arena. "Earth team," the judge announced, "take your position." Morgan stepped up first, her old-fashioned rifle drawing curious stares from the alien audience. She could hear them discussing the primitive projectile launcher in various languages. The first target appeared. Morgan took careful aim and fired. The shot went wide by 3 inches, exactly as planned. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. "Atmospheric variance," she called out loudly to her team. "Adjust for wind." There was no wind in the arena, a fact that made several alien observers laugh openly. But Dr. Thompson, monitoring the shots with special sensors hidden in her technical equipment, was building a perfect map of the arena's energy field fluctuations. The team continued their performance. Each miss was calculated, each error precisely planned. To the aliens, it looked like humans were struggling with basic marksmanship. To Dr. Thompson's instruments, they were painting a complex picture of the arena's hidden properties. "These humans," High Marshal Zextal said loudly to his advisors, "they can't even compensate for basic environmental factors that don't exist." His laughter carried through the arena. Morgan caught Billy's eye and winked. The pool champion grinned back, recognition of a well-executed bank shot in his expression. Because what the Varaxians didn't realize was that every miss was actually a hit, not on the targets, but on their own assumptions. As the first round concluded, with the Varaxians scoring perfect and the humans appearing to barely qualify for continuation, Morgan's team gathered in their preparation room. "Data collection complete," Dr. Thompson said quietly, her eyes scanning the results. "We've mapped every energy field, every gravitational fluctuation, every hidden current in the arena." "Good," Morgan replied, her voice just above a whisper. "Now, the real game begins." The second day of competition began with an air of resigned acceptance among the alien spectators. Most had started treating the human performance as a sort of tragic comedy. Their whispered conversations focused not on if Earth would lose, but how badly. Major Morgan stood at the preparation station, making a show of cleaning her rifle, while Dr. Thompson quietly confirmed their calculations on a battered tablet. "All field mappings are complete," the physicist whispered. "The arena's more perfect than we hoped." "Perfect is predictable," Morgan replied with a slight smile, running her cleaning rod through the barrel one last time. The rod, supplied by Billy Williams, had taken precise measurements of every microscopic variable in the weapon's bore. High Marshal Zextal's voice echoed through the chamber. "For our next challenge, we present the multi-path engagement test." The arena's holographic systems activated, creating a complex maze of barriers, each seemingly made of solid light. Competitors must engage targets without direct line of sight. The Varaxian team stepped up first, led by Sub-Commander Vex. His energy weapon hummed as he assessed the course. The first target was hidden behind 3 barriers, completely obscured from the firing position. "Observe true martial science," Vex announced. His weapon fired, the energy beam splitting into 3 perfect segments that went around the barriers through carefully positioned reflectors. The crowd cheered as the target disintegrated. For 20 minutes, the Varaxian team demonstrated their mastery of energy weapon physics. Each shot was a calculated display of advanced technology, using built-in quantum computers to plot perfect paths through the maze. Then it was Earth's turn. Morgan stepped up to the line, her movement unhurried. She'd swapped out her standard rifle for what looked like an even more primitive bolt-action model. The alien audience actually groaned in second-hand embarrassment. "What is that antique?" one of the Varaxian officers asked loudly. "It belongs in a museum." Morgan didn't reply. Instead, she turned to Billy Williams. "Remember that trick shot in Vegas? The one that got you banned from the Golden Nugget?" Billy grinned. 7 banks, 3 cushions, and the 8-ball jumped 2 rails before going in. House claimed it violated the laws of physics. "Let's show them something similar." Morgan raised her rifle, but instead of aiming at any of the designated angles, she pointed at what appeared to be a random spot on the floor. The shot cracked through the arena. The custom round hit the floor at a precise angle, ricocheted upward, struck a barrier edge, split into 3 pre-calculated fragments, each taking a different path through the maze. The fragments spun, creating their own micro-trajectories as they curved through the course. What happened next drew gasps from even the most jaded observers. The 3 fragments converged on the target from different angles, but instead of simply hitting it, they struck in a precise pattern that sent shockwaves through the holographic barriers. These shockwaves, perfectly timed and positioned, created a chain reaction. Secondary targets, not even part of the current challenge, began falling as the energy rippled through the arena structure. Each impact was calculated, each vibration measured. until the final fragment completed its path by taking out the original target with a shot that, by all apparent laws of physics, should have been impossible. Silence fell over the arena. Did High Marshal Zextal's voice actually cracked? Did they just use a single projectile to create a kinetic chain reaction through our energy field matrix? Dr. Thompson stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the stunned quiet. Actually, sir, that was just the calibration shot. Major Morgan needed to verify our environmental readings. She nodded to Morgan. You can do the real demonstration now. Morgan chambered another round, this one looking even more basic than the first. In pool, she said conversationally, her voice echoing in the silent arena. We have a saying, it's not about making the shot, it's about making the shot look easy. She raised the rifle again, and in that moment, the Varaxian High Command began to understand that they might have made a terrible mistake in challenging humanity to a contest of martial skill. They had mastered energy and light, but humans had mastered something far more fundamental: the art of making the impossible look inevitable. High Marshal Zextal's command chamber aboard the station had descended into chaos. Holographic displays showed replay after replay of Major Morgan's impossible shot, while Varaxian scientists argued in multiple languages about the physics involved. It violates every principle of modern combat, Sub-Commander Vex insisted, his armor rippling with agitation. Their projectile changed course multiple times without any guidance system. No, said the chief science officer, Cottrell, her silver scales shifting to a deeper blue of deep thought. It changed course precisely because it had no guidance system. They're using pure mechanical engineering, forces we haven't considered in millennia. The door chimed, and Dr. Thompson entered at Zextal's invitation. The human scientist carried her battered tablet, looking almost apologetic as she faced the gathered alien command staff. You requested a technical explanation, High Marshal, she asked, her voice neutral, but her eyes bright with barely contained excitement. Please, Zextal gestured to the central display. Enlighten us on how your primitive technology achieved this result. Thompson tapped her tablet, and new data streams appeared in the holographic display. It's actually quite simple. Your arena is perfect, too perfect. The energy fields, the artificial gravity, even the air pressure are maintained at exactly similar levels throughout the space. She highlighted different sections of the arena. This perfection makes everything predictable. Like a pool table with absolutely true cushions, we can calculate every bounce, every spin, every transfer of energy down to the microscopic level. But the splitting of the projectile, Cottrell interjected, the timing of the impacts. Basic mechanical engineering, Thompson replied. Our rounds are designed to split at specific forces, using no electronics that could be detected or countered. The fragments are weighted and shaped to follow predetermined paths based on the initial shot's velocity and angle. She pulled up another display, showing the interior of one of their custom rounds. The Varaxians leaned forward, their earlier disdain replaced by fascination. See these grooves? They're micro-machined to create specific spin patterns when the round splits. Combined with the arena's perfect environmental control, we can make the fragments dance like leaves in a hurricane, except every movement is calculated. Meanwhile, in the practice area, Major Morgan worked with her team, making adjustments that looked random to the Varaxian observers but were anything but. Billy, she called out, remember that shot you taught me? The one with the massive spin. The pool champion grinned, taking the rifle and demonstrating a slight twist in the holding position. Like this, Major. It's all in the initial rotation. You're not shooting at the target. You're shooting at the space that will leave the target to itself. The Varaxian security officers watching the practice session exchanged confused looks. One of them activated his combat analysis system, trying to make sense of the human's approach. Back in the command chamber, Dr. Thompson was concluding her explanation. Your energy weapons are remarkable achievements of science, but they've led you down a single path of development. You've optimized for perfect accuracy in a straight line, while we've been forced to master the art of the indirect approach. High Marshal Zextal stood by the window, looking out at Earth floating in the distance. We thought we were testing your combat capability, he said quietly. But instead, you're teaching us about a form of warfare we've forgotten was possible. Not forgotten, Thompson corrected gently. Just over-evolved past. Sometimes the most effective solution isn't the most advanced one. A junior officer burst into the chamber, his armor flashing emergency colors. High Marshal, the humans. They're doing something new in the practice area. You need to see this. On the practice range, Major Morgan had just demonstrated a shot that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. The round had traveled in a perfect spiral, using the arena's own energy fields as a guide path, before splitting into a pattern that created a perfect replica of the Varaxian Imperial Seal, all with a single pull of the trigger. That's just showing off, Billy commented with a grin. No, Morgan replied, chamber another round. That was just the beginning. Now we show them why humanity never stopped learning the hard way. In the command chamber, Dr. Thompson's tablet beeped with a message from the team. She allowed herself a small smile as she read it. High Marshal, she said, I believe you'll want to watch the next demonstration very carefully. We're about to show you why sometimes the best technology is the one that makes you think differently. The final challenge arena had been transformed into a bewildering array of moving platforms, energy shields, and seemingly impossible target configurations. The gathered alien dignitaries watched with anticipation as High Marshal Zextal announced the parameters. The ultimate test. His voice resonated through the chamber. Competitors must engage 20 targets protected by advanced shield systems. All targets must be neutralized simultaneously. He paused for effect. You have one shot. The Varaxian team stepped up first. Sub-Commander Vex's energy weapon had been modified, its surface now crackling with additional power modules. The alien weapon split its beam into 20 perfect lines of force, each aimed at a different target. The beams hit the shields and stopped dead. Vex tried again, adjusting the frequency. Again, the shields held. After 10 minutes of increasingly desperate attempts, the Varaxian team withdrew in confusion. The shields, Cottrell explained to the audience, are randomly modulated. No single energy frequency can penetrate all of them at once. It's a perfect defense. Major Morgan stepped up to the firing line, her simple rifle looking almost comically basic compared to the Varaxian technology. Billy Williams stood behind her, cleaning rod in hand, while Dr. Thompson monitored her tablet. Permission to modify the course? Morgan asked. Zextal, intrigued despite himself, nodded. Morgan turned to her team. Set up the Newton reception. The human team moved with practiced precision. They placed small metal discs at seemingly random points throughout the arena. Each disc was nothing more than a precisely machined piece of steel, with no electronic components. What are they doing? One alien observer asked another. Those are just pieces of metal. Morgan loaded a single round into her rifle. This one was different from the others. It seemed to catch and reflect light in strange ways. Dr. Thompson, Morgan called out, would you explain what we're about to do? I think our friends should understand the science they're about to witness. Thompson stepped forward, her tablet displaying complex mathematical models. The problem with these shields isn't their strength, it's their perfection. Each one operates on a different frequency, making them impossible to breach simultaneously with energy weapons. She highlighted the metal discs. These are resonance points. When struck in the right sequence, they'll create a cascade of harmonic frequencies through the arena's structure. The round, Morgan added, taking aim, is designed to split into primary and secondary fragments. Each primary fragment will strike a resonance point, creating a specific frequency. The secondary fragments will ride those frequencies like waves. Billy stepped up. Think of it like breaking a rack in pool. The cue ball transfers energy through the entire setup, but each ball moves in its own perfect path. Morgan's rifle cracked once. The round split almost immediately, its fragments dancing through the arena like a swarm of metallic butterflies. Each one struck a resonance point with perfect timing, creating waves of force that rippled through the arena's structure. The shields began to flicker as harmonic frequencies washed over them. The secondary fragments, riding these waves, curved and spun through the gaps in the destabilized fields. All 20 targets were struck within a millisecond of each other. But that wasn't the most impressive part. As the fragments completed their paths, the resonance points continued their work. The vibrations through the arena's structure created a complex standing wave pattern that, when viewed from above, formed an exact replica of Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. The arena fell silent. That, Morgan said into the quiet, was a demonstration of basic physics. No computers, no energy weapons, just an understanding of how forces move through space and time. Dr. Thompson's tablet displayed the calculations behind the shot. Every bounce, every spin, every frequency was calculated using nothing more complex than Newton's laws of motion. We turned your perfect arena into a musical instrument, and the bullet was our conductor's baton. High Marshal Zextel stepped forward, his armor shifting through colors never before seen in the competition. In all our millennia of advancement, he said slowly, we never considered that true mastery might mean understanding the simple things deeply, rather than creating more complex solutions. Morgan saved her rifle and turned to face the marshal. Sometimes the most advanced technology isn't the one that does the job for you. It's the one that makes you think about how to do the job differently. The victory celebration aboard the space station had a distinctly different tone than anyone had expected at the competition's start. Instead of the planned ceremony to welcome Earth as a protectorate, the Grand Hall had been transformed into a forum for cultural and technical exchange. Major Morgan stood at a demonstration table, her rifle partially disassembled to show its internal workings to a group of fascinated Varaxian engineers. Beside her, Billy Williams used his pool cue to demonstrate the principles of angular momentum and spin. The beauty of it, Morgan explained, holding up one of their special rounds, is that once you understand the basic forces at work, you can apply them in almost infinite combinations. Every environment becomes an opportunity. High Marshal Zextal approached the table, his armor now displaying a pattern that mixed Varaxian and human military insignias. We've analyzed your performance, he said, activating a holographic display. Our scientists are still trying to comprehend how you achieved some of those shots. Dr. Thompson joined them, her tablet now interfaced with the station's systems. That's because you're looking for complexity, where the real magic lies in simplicity. Here, let me show you. She pulled up the data from their final demonstration. See these resonance patterns? They're the same mathematics that govern music, architecture, even the growth patterns of plants. We didn't invent anything new. We just learned to play the universe's own game. In another corner of the hall, Carlos Rodriguez was teaching a group of young Varaxian military students about the mechanics of curved balls. Their eyes widened as he explained how simple air pressure and spin could make objects move in ways their advanced targeting systems had never considered. The most remarkable thing, Cottrell said, addressing a mixed group of human and alien scientists, is not just what they achieved, but how it forces us to reconsider our entire approach to technology. We've been so focused on overcoming physical laws that we forgot to master them first. Morgan watched as various groups mingled, sharing ideas and perspectives. The competition had transformed from a potential conquest into something far more valuable, a bridge between different ways of thinking. Your world will still join the Galactic community, Zextal announced, his voice carrying across the hall, but not as a protectorate. Earth will be welcomed as a full member, with a special advisory role in military sciences and physical engineering. He paused, his next words carefully chosen. We came here expecting to teach, but instead, we found ourselves students of an art we had forgotten. Your primitive technology reminded us that true advancement isn't always about making things more complex. Dr. Thompson's tablet beeped, drawing everyone's attention. On its display was a simulation of their next project, a hybrid system that combined Varaxian energy weapons with human ballistic principles. Imagine, she said, her eyes bright with possibilities. Energy beams that can curve and split like our bullets, or projectiles guided by energy fields that don't just hit targets, but dance through space like living things. Morgan picked up her rifle, now modified with some subtle Varaxian enhancements. The future of warfare isn't about choosing between old and new, she said, chambering a round that gleamed with both mechanical precision and energy signatures. It's about understanding that every tool, every principle, has its place. As if to demonstrate, she fired a single shot at a distant target. The round split into a pattern that the Varaxians recognized as their own sacred geometry, while moving with the unpredictable grace of human ballistics. Now that, Billy said with a grin, is what I call a trick shot. The laughter that filled the hall was more than just amusement. It was the sound of two civilizations finding common ground in the space between stars. Later, as Earth glowed blue and beautiful through the station's windows, Morgan stood with Zextal, watching their teams work together on new projects. You know, she said, when we started this competition, everyone thought it was about proving who was better. Turns out it was about proving that we're better together. A High Marshal's armor rippled in agreement. Indeed, Major Morgan. Though I must ask, did you plan this outcome from the beginning? She smiled, the same smile that had first worried him days ago. Let's just say sometimes, the best shot isn't the one that hits the target. It's the one that changes the game. And in the years that followed, as human ingenuity mixed with Varaxian technology, the galaxy would learn just how true those words were.